There's this video of a doctor who has a TikTok account, giving all sorts of advice and sharing his experience with his audience. All good, all fine, but one particular video caught my attention. And in this video, he attempts to explain what happens to people who use the spirit board scientifically. Listen to this for a moment.
Is a Ouija board truly haunted, or is there a medical explanation for these cases? Recently, 28 girls in Colombia were hospitalized at the same time for anxiety and fainting symptoms after playing with a Ouija board. This is similar to a case back in November in which 11 teenage students were hospitalized after they were found passed out in a corridor after playing with a Ouija board. Hospital records say they had abdominal pain, vomiting, and muscle spasms, but ultimately they were diagnosed with food poisoning. Now, there is something called a shared psychotic disorder, in which a normal, healthy person takes on the delusions of a person that is having a psychotic episode around them. What do you think? Can science explain this one, or is the Ouija board truly haunted?
So every now and then unbelievers, atheists, skeptics would often leave their comments on this channel, wondering how people still believe in this kind of thing today, all the angels and demons. But my job isn't to convince you, only to preach and share, and to do that, I prefer to take the approach of sharing clips of the priests with all of you. And being a Catholic, and you're watching the videos here, obviously I'm going to offer explanations to this thing from a Catholic point of view. Even if some skeptics keep hurling insults, cursing in the comments, or just hate the way I deliver these information, I won't stop sharing these warnings and lessons just because a few find them hard to believe.
You have to explain to them that there is a spirit, an evil spirit, that is involved in the use of this Ouija board. And whether you think you're doing this or not, you are inviting this evil spirit into not just your life, you're inviting the evil spirit into you. And this is the example of Robbie Mannheim, that's in that book, The Exorcist. Of course, you don't want to scare the living daylights out of them. But in a manner of speaking, I'll tell you this right now, the more you use that Ouija board, the more you are giving power over, you're giving permission over to this evil spirit to enter into your life, to enter into you, even if you are not intending that this be the case, even if you're using it as a plaything. Remember, you are invoking spirits. And those spirits, they're not good spirits. They're not angels. I don't care what anybody tells you. It's the evil spirit that is being invoked. And so the consequences will be there. The best thing you can do is throw that Ouija board out. Get it out of the house.
Now, speaking of skeptics, sometimes these people say in the comments, why is it always the people with faith who are possessed? Why is it that we rarely see documented cases of high-profile people like celebrities or politicians possessed by these demons?
Because again, I think it would be that somebody would have to come public, first of all. They would have to want to share their story. There could be the stigma that people will think that they're not in their right mind, and then maybe they're going to lose their whatever position of power or prestige that they have, so they may not be willing to step forward. Goes back to the question again, so why does the average Joe get possessed, but somebody that's more prominent doesn't? And the key would be whether or not somebody is truly seeking help. That's the key thing, whether or not somebody's famous, whether or not they're not famous. It depends on the degree that one's dealing with the demonic, because something of the person always remains free. That's why even somebody that's possessed could ask for help. It's not total. There is something that's called perfect possession, where somebody takes their free will and they unite their free will completely with the demonic. So there never would be any manifestations then. The fact that there are manifestations would indicate that there's still an internal battle, there's still a struggle that's taking place. But it could be that somebody is possessed, but because they've resigned their free will to the will of the devil, there is no manifestation. There's no battle to take place.
Now, moving on to another subject that I often warn people about is OnlyFans. I shared statistics, testimonies, and the process that the third-party OnlyFans agencies use to entice young girls to market their videos with all of you previously.
Recently, I remember I spoke about this with somebody else, but there's this woman who says she's Christian, and she's an OnlyFans model that made like $40 million in a year. And she says she's still, her faith is intact. She's a good Christian woman. Now, I'm not part of OnlyFans, but I have to imagine if you're making $40 million, you're not photographing yourself with your clothes on. There has to be something you're showing. People are paying you for it. And that is so sad to me, because not only for her own personal dignity, but all the young women, young, even men who are going to watch not her directly, but the story in the, oh, you can make $40 million by being on only, just that's, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Yeah, you're literally dangling a carrot in front of the youth saying, here's a way to go to be rich. All you have to do is take all your clothes off. When did this become normal?
And I often ask parents who watch the videos here a lot, do you really know what your kids are up to? Who they follow? Do you talk to them enough? Because OnlyFans agencies are luring them with the promise of making a lot of money with OnlyFans. Yesterday I shared a clip with you, a former witch describing her so-called working experience with the devil. Now compare what she says to this former OnlyFans creator talking about her regrets.
The trouble is, when you play with the devil, he doesn't play fair. He'll give you everything you want, all the drugs you want, all the women you want, all the promises, and all the power you want. And when he's done with you, he'll kick the legs out from under you. And that's why you hear rock stars sometimes say, I sold my soul to the devil. Because once you make that trade, he'll give you what you want. But people need to understand that the devil is not sharing his kingdom with anyone. And I was studying all this witchcraft. I thought everything was wonderful. The same spirits that gave me power began to turn on me. I thought I had arrived. The same spirits that gave me power to read cards and astral project and the psyche power. It was as if all of a sudden the same voices that would say this man is committing adultery or this woman steals at work or this girl's going to get married last year when I was reading cards would now say to me, you should die.
We've heard it from exorcists time and again. People who make deals with the devil, knowingly or not, always start out on top. Money, fame, power, everything feels perfect. Then slowly, it all falls apart. Their lives unravel.
My mental health since I've started this has just slowly been on such a decline. I feel a little bit dead inside. I feel completely desensitized. Not to sound funny, but I really don't feel any type of desire or attraction to men in general anymore. Just know that if you are a person who's ever been interested in doing this, there really are so many downsides. At this point, and I'm willing to admit this now, there's no amount of money that you can give me right now to make me feel giving myself away in certain aspects, even if they're just a few photos or whatever online. It almost isn't worth it anymore. And while I did have such a strong start and it was so much fun in the beginning, after getting burnt out, I started to just feel really differently about the types of messages that I was getting. Seriously, if I had any type of ability to share the things that people have said, just how disgusting they are. And also when I get curious and nosy sometimes, I'll go look at their profile and they have a whole girlfriend or a whole wife. And sometimes even disgustingly enough, they have kids. It makes me feel so conflicted with doing this. When I really sit down to think about what the purpose of all this is, it's really just to visually please a bunch of men. I've been sort of exploring the idea of maybe just having my content be focused on, things that I'm actually interested in, which ultimately is not pleasing men in any way, shape, or form. Y'all can keep your money at this point.
Renikoff is retiring from her OF after making $67 million in only 3 years. Brenna tweeted her announcement saying, no more link in bio. And remember when David Dobrik posted her monthly earnings and it was literally $1 million a month minimum, basically? She also made $1 million in the first day of launching her OnlyFans.
And last June I've asked Father Winston about this during my Zoom session with him, whether what these content creators are doing are going to invite the incubus and succubus spirits. Listen to this again.
The one that you're telling me, so you're looking at it from, we're dealing with two things here. The instigator, the woman, and the victims. Okay. So the woman, as a kind of challenge, says that I will have carnal relations with 1,000 men. Okay. So the woman is already giving herself precisely to it. It's a perverse thing. The perverse thing, right? So there's no more incubus and succubus there. Because it's already willful. The devil does not need to attack her. She has already given herself to that reality. Incubus and succubus are attacks. And when you are attacked, it is because you are seen as a potential enemy or a potential prize. And this one is no longer that. This is a willful thing. So willful, if you're looking at it from Catholic moral theology, this is already mortal sin. This is open rebellion against God. Whether the person believes in God or not, it is immaterial. The person is committing mortal sin. And so the intention, the frequency, that is mortal sin itself. The devil is just saying, okay.
And on top of that, when these content creators are coming together to have a place like this, it reminds me of this clip of Msgr Rossetti.
When sin invites in the evil spirits. So whenever a sin is done by ourselves or by anyone, it invites in evil spirits. Now, we don't necessarily get possessed, but it does invite evil in. And the more, of course, the more you do it and the more serious it is, the worse it is. So if you go to a house, for example, and the people complain about evil spirits in the house, the first question the priest exorcist will ask is, what were people doing in this house? We had one case, it was kind of well known in our own work. A guy was doing the occult and things of the occult, and also sadly molesting minors. And there was a huge invitation to demons in the house, which of all the things, it's like a bad movie, banging, crashing, doors going in, dogs howling, windows going up, and it was a disaster. He was committing sins and invited in some demons. So, yeah.
And it's also important to remember this part, what Our Lady said before. Listen to this.
Our Lady of Fatima. She said at Fatima, more people go to hell for sexual sin than any other category. That was 1918. How much worse has it been? I often pray with men in prison who have sexual compulsions and have had them for years. We go through a very long confession, because usually there's a lot of things that happened when they were young that they never confessed. Okay? Teenage boy's not exactly going to talk about finding magazines where he shouldn't have been finding magazines and doing stuff that's embarrassing. He'll be lucky if he's 19 and 20 and really admitting that in confession. So I always go to, okay, you've been to confession quite a few times. Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about when this sexual stuff started happening, when you were 11, 12, 13. Yeah, when's the first time you confessed that? Oh, I might have been 25. Oh, and when you told the father at 25 that, yeah, pornography is kind of like a problem and it's really all over the internet, did you kind of mention all those other times? We need to clean it all, because the devil will say, well, you're mine. You do these things. Disobedient, sinful. These are my entryways. Okay? Have you ever asked for forgiveness for that? And often I find guys say, no. Oh, and there's also a bunch of other stuff. Well, let's talk about it all. Let's wipe it all clean. Because that way the devil has nothing to hold on to you with.
But despite what's currently happening, including everything that I've shared with you, what's going on in our society today, I want to leave you with this beautiful message and reminder from Father Iannuzzi.
So God knows when to intervene. He's waiting for that quota of martyrs to be filled. When that quota is complete, then he will intervene. So yes, we may implore God to intervene while acknowledging, not my will, but your will be done. Like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus implored for this chalice to be removed, but he said, yet not my will, but yours be done. It's not easy. It's easy for me to sit here and say this, especially when it's a personal issue. But this is the will of God. He is in charge. And sometimes people look for consolation like, well, how do we manage in this great confusion when we are confused as well? God's not intervening. Consider Padre Pio's reply. He said to a person it wasn't in the confessional, because if it was, it would be violating the confessional, right? So he said to this person in spiritual counseling that didn't understand why God allowed his wife to die, his daughter to die. He was really devastated. He said, you are like a child at the foot of the master listening to him, and he is teaching you. When you look up at the master, you see that he is weaving on a canvas a beautiful tapestry. but you're looking from beneath the canvas and you see this yarn and strings hanging down. It makes no sense. It's all confusion. And you say to him, what are you doing? You've been spending days sitting there, and all I see is strings hanging from the bottom of this canvas. Then he turns it around and he says, now I understand. So God is performing a beautiful musical score. He's comprising this beautiful story of salvation, and he is creating a great masterpiece, but we don't see it yet. We're seeing just the confusion, the birth pangs, the suffering, until he shows us the full picture. Then we understand everything. But he does not want us to understand everything now. This is part of our journey of faith. And we should never will any harm upon anyone. Jesus tells us to love those who hate you, bless your persecutors, like he did with his executioners, and saying, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. The reason is that we do not, I think, reflect sufficiently on hell enough. And that this is one of the reasons why we may want to see our enemies just destroyed. Do you know what hell is? Have you been there? Have you read the writings of Faustina on how horrible and despairing and eternal that place is? If you knew and meditated on hell at length, you wouldn't want anyone to go there, not even your worst enemy. Neither does God, because of its extreme and intense evil and hatred that is without any hope. With that in mind, no one should pray that the chastisement comes and kills our evildoers and sends them to hell. That's not what we want. If we do that, we don't know what hell is like. We're not meditating sufficiently on the reality of hell. You know what really remains when, in the end, after we die, we are judged? The only thing that remains is love. This is the only thing we will be judged by. Love those who persecute you, Jesus says. You would rather have them convert, be saved, even if that means a long purgatory, because they will then become great saints.
Anyway, please share with me what you think in the comments below. Although it's not really possible for me to reply to every single comment that people write, but I get a lot of ideas on what to cover next in the videos from your comments. And if you like what we do, and we've recently expanded to usual questions about Catholicism, spiritual warfare guide, videos on the many saints in the church, if you like what we do and like to support us, there's a link to our PayPal in the description box below. And thank you so much to all of you for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. May God bless all of you, and I hope you've learned a lot from this one.